Okay, the format of this meeting is a 10-minute speaker, our secretary announcements, a coffee and snack break, and then our main speaker. Our first speaker for tonight is Wendy.
My name is Wendy. I'm an alcoholic. And I want to thank Matt for asking me to share tonight about 10 minutes ago. We just enjoyed a nice meal together. We've known Matt for, about 10 years. We met him on a sober vacation, and he's just a wonderful friend of ours. And I love you, Matt. So let's see. Yeah, let's put my thoughts together here. 10 minutes is a short amount of time to talk about life. Yeah, he already told me. Yeah, a life filled with alcohol and drugs and sobriety. But I guess I'll take it back. The first drink I had was a Miller Genuine Draft. I was 14, and I was at the firstman's house, and we were partying, and it was I drank that beer, and I felt a part of, and I chased that feeling for many, many years. My high school years were beer as a freshman, pot as a sophomore, Coke junior. Met my husband, and I met my husband when I was 17, and my parents kicked me out of the house. I moved in with him, a stripper, an alligator, and a couple other guys, and it was on. It was on. Yeah, an alligator's like 3 feet. But back then, I could go I could go till Thursday and not have a drink, and we'd party Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday night. And over the next few years, it was, then it was Wednesday night, and then it was Tuesday night, and then it was every night. And my boyfriend and I weren't getting along, so we decided to get married. And then we weren't getting along, so we decided to have a baby. And I was able to not drink for those 9 months that I was pregnant with my daughter. And but when I had her, I think within a couple days I was drinking again, and not realizing that I was a budding alcoholic. And then it got to a point where we weren't getting along again, so I thought he was the problem, so I left with my little girl. And years later, I realized that it wasn't him the problem, I was the problem. Wherever I go, there I am. And so yeah, it was just, I think back in my life, and there was a time I feel like I could have stopped, but there was just something in me that I just needed that ease and comfort. And the more I drank and the more I chased that ease and comfort, the more addicted I became. When I was 26, I was turned on to crystal meth, and that completely changed my drinking and drugging life. It became a daily thing. I was a single mom, and the meth helped me work those 2 full-time jobs and do laundry in the wee hours in the morning. And I thought it was working. I really, truly did. I thought, I thought this was a miracle drug for me. And came a point in that time in my life, a couple years into it, it was like I needed to quit. I met someone, and he goes, "You need to quit." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll quit." And I tried to quit, and that was my first time I was told either you go into treatment or you have to leave. So I went into treatment for the first time in my life. I was 30, and I really thought I was just a drug addict. I didn't think I was an alcoholic, even though I was drinking 24/7 and doing drugs 24/7. So I got out of that treatment center, and I started drinking wine, because wine is an alcohol. And I can handle wine, and a week later, I'm, back on the meth, and, in and out. I've been to treatment 5 times. The last treatment center I went to, I was there for 3 months, and then they asked me to go to sober living. And when I went into that treatment center at that time, I was 36 years old. My daughter didn't want to have anything to do with me. I was living from couch to couch. I was completely broken. And I went back into that treatment center, and I put my life back together. I say I did because at that time I still thought that I was controlling the show. And when I'm in treatment, I'm the perfect student, and the owner of the treatment center said, we really want you to go to sober living. And I said, no, I need to get back to my daughter who didn't want to speak to me and that boyfriend who didn't want anything to do with me. But I said, I will, this is in Long Beach, I'll go for a month. And I ended up staying in that sober living for 2.5 years. And that's where my, in treatment, they talk about AA, but I didn't hear it. I just didn't hear it. But at that time, I did get a sponsor, and I kind of did the steps, and I got my life back together as how I thought it should look. I got my real estate license. I started making money. My daughter moved back in with me. She was 17 at the time. And, things started to work. And I used to come to this meeting, and sit in the back and really not talk to anyone. But, it didn't take very long where I put everything before my sobriety, and I relapsed again. And here I am. Drinking and using and I just couldn't figure out what happened. And what happened was I took myself away from you guys, and the closest thing, instead of picking up a phone for help, was picking up a drink. And so that was almost 15 years ago that I put that drink down and the drug down, and I knew that I needed to do something completely different with my sobriety, and that for me was going to women's meetings, going to meetings every day, and getting a sponsor and doing the steps, like thoroughly doing the steps. And my daughter, she was 20, and I felt like I missed it all. She didn't want anything to do with me. I couldn't figure out how to fix that relationship, but I started sharing about it honestly in my women's meetings, and the women in my life put their arms around me and taught me how to be a mom, taught me how to be a wife and a daughter. And it took a long time for that relationship with my daughter to fix. And, she'll have 5 years of sobriety in September. We have 2 grandkids. I was able to be in the room when my granddaughter was born. My granddaughter will never see me drink. I'm the best Gigi those kids will ever have. My daughter tells people I'm her best friend. That little girl that never knew where her mom was going to be, I remember one time I went to treatment, and I said, give Mama a hug, because I don't know when I'm going to come back. And she's like, no, Mom, I can't. I don't want to give you a hug. And I thought at that time, what a little bitch. Doesn't she know what I have to go through? Doesn't she know? And today I look back and I go, that poor little 13-year-old girl didn't have any idea if her mom would come back, when she would come back, and today it's just not like that. Today I've learned so much about being a woman and being a kind friend and being sober, gosh, being able to go on a vacation and laugh and have fun and not have to put anything in my body. I have a wonderful sober husband that he's seen me drunk and he's seen me sober, and we walk through a lot of things together. Good things. Good things are hard sometimes in sobriety. Tough things are hard. But it's so much easier if you share about it honestly, and if you get a home group. I have a wonderful home group. It's my Monday night women's drive-through meeting. I have a sobriety date. It's September 4th, 2009. I have a sponsor, Karen Cleveland. I have commitments. I have sponsees. And I have a beautiful life today. And today I know that it's not what I can hold in my hand that makes my life good. It's everything on the inside. It's that contentment I was chasing for so many years. I'm mostly content. It's because I have a relationship with higher power. I have relationships with you guys. I can look around the room. There's so many people I recognize, and I haven't been to this meeting for so long. I have an old boss here that fired me. Well, no, you didn't. Well, but I love you today. He knew, you didn't fire me. But you saw me walk through some tough stuff. Anyways, I'm going to be quiet now, but thanks, Matt, for asking me to be the 10-minute speaker.
Alan, tell me when. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, our main speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Matt from the West Side.
Hey, I'm Matt. I'm an alcoholic. Thanks, Kelly, for asking me to come down and speak tonight. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I hate speaking. And welcome to anybody on Zoom. I think the Zoom's not working, but are there any newcomers here? Anybody in the first 30 days? Welcome. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. My sobriety date is November 6th, 1978. I got sober when I was 19 years old. I live in the west side of Los Angeles. But in 1965, I lived at 1436 Manhattan Beach Boulevard. And I was 5 years old, and my babysitter asked me if I wanted to get high. And so I'm 5 years old, 1436 Manhattan Beach Boulevard, right by Peck. And my babysitter pulled out a water pipe and had my brother John and I was going to Manhattan Nights, and John was in Manhattan Nights also. Then he went to Beg after that. And my other brother Jim was going to Maricosta. And my brother Jim got kicked out of Maricosta High School back then for growing his hair past his earlobes. Remember, there was dress codes back in those days. But anyway, she pulled out this water pipe, and she had a teddy bear, and she unzipped the teddy bear, and she pulled out a bag of weed, and she filled up this weed, and she said, my brother John's got 48 years sober, and he's 5 years older than me. Actually, he's 48 years sober, and growing up my entire life, he was 5 years older than me, but now he's 4 years older than me. I don't know how that happened, but he gets younger as I get older. But he said, you can't tell Mom that we're smoking dope. I'm like, I'm not going to tell Mom. But he said I was like 5, and he goes, I had chubby cheeks, and I would take a hit off that water pipe. And he goes, and then you cough, and he goes, it was so funny. You were so cute. And I'm like, oh, I was like, So if you have older brothers and you grew up in Manhattan Beach, you I don't know, you might end up in AA at this meeting. So the first time I ever drank, I was 8. I drank Manischewitz, so I don't know if that's really drinking. It's probably grapes. And then the first time I ever got drunk, I was 8, and which was in Brentwood. And the first time I drank was in Brentwood. My babysitter taught me how to smoke cigarettes also at 1436 Manhattan Beach Boulevard. I'm telling you, Manhattan Beach was bad back in the 60s. And I was smoking a half pack of cigarettes a day by the time I was 9. First time I ever got arrested, I was 9 years old for stealing cigarettes, and I don't know if you guys ever gone to a store. You remember they used to have like the checkout lines, and the checkout person would be here, and then right behind her there was a rack of cigarettes on the bar, right? So I was 9. And I used to smoke Marlboro Red, the hard pack, and I didn't have 35 cents to buy them from the machine. So I went into this Westford Ho, which is now a Whole Foods on San Vicente in Brentwood. And I walked in, and I told myself I was going invisible. So I walk, like this, the teller's right, like, and I walk up to the thing, and I grab a pack of Marlboro Reds, and I stick them down my pants, and the security guard and the manager's looking right at me. But I'm gone invisible, right? And so I walked out of the store, and the security guard grabs me, and he brings me up to the room, and he says, I got to call the police. And I go, oh, just call my mom. She'll come pick me up. He goes, no, I got to call the police. I remember at 9 years old, I'm thinking, you son of a bitch, you fucking, excuse my language, I'm not going to swear, but that's what I was thinking when I was 9. I was crying. And then, when you get arrested in West LA, the next day you've got to go down and see this guy named Sergeant Huey. And I saw Sergeant Huey like 12 different times. And I got arrested 12 times before I got sober. 12 times between the ages of 9 and 18, I think. And then I've only been arrested once in sobriety, so it's... There's a guy with 30 years of sobriety in West LA. He was speaking at a meeting. No, he's got more now. He's got like 35 years now. But he was speaking, and he said, and he was just in his talk, he said, so I'm on my way to go speak at a seminar on emotional sobriety. And on the way there, I got arrested. That's all he said. And I was just like, oh my God, alcoholics are just so much fun. We have so much fun. But sometimes we just can't shut up, and sometimes we just got to be right, and sometimes that guy in front of us just has to get over. So, and that's a problem. So I was in a meeting about a couple months ago. So I got sober when I was 19, and which I think is young. But I was in a meeting, and there was a 15-year-old at the meeting, and he was getting sober, and this guy said to him, he goes, 15, how could you get sober at 15? And the kid goes, I lost everything. and he did, and we lose everything. And, so, wait, how long, is there a clock somewhere? I'm going to do this. What time am I supposed to stop? 5 till, okay, cool. No matter when you get sober, however old you are, you're never too old or too young. The fact that we walk in the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous one day and decide to make a change is wherever that is, whenever that is. I think it's a miracle, and for people like us, I don't know where to start. I want to say that when I got here, this whole side of my head was caved in. I had multiple brain contusions. I had partial amnesia. I had lost my sense of smell from getting hit by a car. Right after I got hit by a car, 2 weeks after that, one of my good friends died in a car accident. And the day of his funeral, I'm 18 years old, and the day of his funeral, I stole a bottle of vodka from my friend's mother's liquor cabinet. And at the funeral, my friend got so pissed at me for stealing his mom's vodka that he pinned me down on the ground. He beat my head on the ground until my eardrums burst. And the next day I walked into my doctor's office with blood coming out of my ears. And by this time, I'm 18, so by this time I've tried to commit suicide 3 times. I've slit my wrists. I've overdosed 3 times. I've had a shot of adrenaline in my heart once. By this time I'd been arrested 11 times, and I've overdosed, and I've been arrested, I think 3 times for drunk driving and 5 times for drunk in public. And no, so it was 4 times, but by that time it was 4 times. And because, and my doctor looked at me and said, "What happened to you this time, Matt?" And I said, "It was just a friendly fight, Doc. It's not a big deal." And he goes, "Matt," he goes, "your friend's trying to kill you." He goes, "You're going to die." He goes, "I treat patients that want to get better, and you're dying. You're going to die. I'm not going to treat you anymore." Now, I'd already been institutionalized. I'd been seeing a psychiatrist. I remember going to a psychiatrist, and I remember hearing that if you go to a psychiatrist, whatever they diagnose you as, you'll have that for the rest of your life. So I walked into the psychiatrist's office, and I go, "I'm not saying nothing." I'm not, because I don't want it, I don't want to know if I got something wrong, and whatever it is, you're not going to diagnose me. And I just told this person too, I go, "If you want to just talk about your family, I'd be happy to hear what you got to say." And I wouldn't, so that therapy didn't work on me. So I didn't see my doctor anymore. And then a couple weeks after that, the Grateful Dead were playing in Santa Barbara. And I took some acid because I lived in West LA at the time, so it took a while to get to Santa Barbara. So I took some acid to get there. And I drank a case of Schlitz malt liquor on the way to Santa Barbara. And then I drank a quart of Jack Daniels, a quart of Southern Comfort, and a quart of tequila. And apparently the band that were staying at the same hotel we were staying at, and they tell me I partied with the guitar players, but I don't know. Might have been a tree. I don't know. It could have been. And the next day, I walked into the Grateful Dead concert, and I had emptied out like those like a gallon jug of water, and I filled it with beer, and I walked right into a cop, and I got arrested. And now I don't know if you guys ever been to a Grateful Dead concert or know how hard it is to get arrested at a Grateful Dead concert, but I'm that guy. So that was the last time I ever got arrested for drinking, and I called my mom and I asked her to pick me up. And this was the 12th time my mom had picked me up from jail. And she said, I'll pick you up, but you have 3 choices. You could stay with me for a month, but you got to go to AA meetings every day. Or I'll drop you off in the Midnight Mission and you can go live with Clancy. Or I'll buy you a one-way ticket to Germany or Hawaii. But she goes, I'm done. And she was done. And she wasn't going to Al-Anon, but she was done with me. And, I'm just... I got sober, and I stayed sober for 5 months. And on November 5th, I had a fender bender car accident. I really missed hanging out with my friends. And I called them, and I said, let's drink. And I drank a couple 6-packs of beer. And then when I finished the second 6-pack, I told my buddy, Doug, I said, let's go get a bottle of vodka. And Doug said, Matt, he goes, you got to go back home, man. You got to go back to AA tomorrow. You can't hang out with us anymore. You're going to die. You got to go back to AA. And that was November 5th. And in November, I woke up the next day, November 6th. I haven't had a drink since. And, but leading up to that time, I come from a family of alcoholic boys. My mom, there was 4 of us, and my dad, we lived in Hermosa Beach in 1962 when he died, and my dad was a major in the Air Force, and he died of cirrhosis of the liver. They told him if he didn't stop drinking, he was going to die. And after a 4th of July party, he came home. They ran out of booze. He drank a bottle of rubbing alcohol, and that was like the last thing, and they just put him in the hospital, and he died a couple of weeks after that. And so my mom raised the 4 boys by herself, and I remember at a young age, I don't remember my dad being violent, but apparently my dad was violent. Like, I don't remember my dad beating up my mom and trying to kill her on Christmas, and being sent away to Iceland for a year because he was in the Air Force. That's what they did back then. And so between the ages of 1 and 3, that happened. And then he used to beat my brother Jim on a daily basis. And I don't remember any of that, but I do remember when I did finally start going to therapy, my therapist said, I would talk like this and do this a lot. And she told me that that's because I'm trying to block punches and keep people away. And I thought that was really interesting. And through a lot of, so anyway, so and growing up, I thought my dad was this great guy. Because my mom would never talk about him when we were growing up, so I didn't know who he was. I didn't know where he was buried. They buried him in San Francisco. I didn't go to his funeral. We were too young, and I didn't know where he was. And if I ever brought my dad up to my mom would say, your dad's not here to defend himself, so we're not going to talk about him. So I had no history, and kids used to start making fun of me because, kids do that when you don't have a dad or a family member. And I used to get in fights at a young age, and I started feeling different and uncomfortable, and that feeling kind of started going and getting bigger and bigger. And by the time I got into the 7th grade, I just felt like a freak. I felt completely like I couldn't hang out with my friends anymore. I felt I felt like paranoid all the time. I was paranoid to be around people, and this I wasn't even smoking any dope then. You know, this is I was clean in the 7th grade. I wasn't doing anything, smoking cigarettes. That was it. And then I just remember, I just felt like a square peg trying to fit into a round circle, you know. And so when I was like, I transferred schools, and in the 8th grade, I started doing a lot of, you know, I became fat. You know, I have an underactive thyroid, so, and I liked to, and then I started smoking dope, and I liked to, so I like to smoke dope and eat ding dongs, you know, and and so my brothers gave me a nickname. They used to call me Fat Matt, and so now I always tell my brother John, like, who's fat now, John? Anyway, so I started doing speed, and probably Wendy could probably identify. It's just there's something about, like, you know, it seems like you can get a lot done in a short amount of time, you know, and I probably had OCD and ADD and everything else, because I knew, like, when I did speed, I got focused, you know, and I could sit in class, you know. I couldn't sit in class before that, but I loved the first time I ever did speed. I did speed for 2 weeks straight. I stayed awake for 2 weeks, and then we ran out of speed, so we started taking downers, and then. And essentially, I took speed because I liked the effect that it produced for me. The same thing as alcohol. And, so I ended up doing a lot of drugs when I was in school. We used to work when I was 13 years old. I started the south end of the campus, and we'd smoke some dope. And if nobody had anything to smoke, then we used to hyperventilate, and we would squeeze each other's stomachs until we passed out. And then I'd go to my first period, homeroom, first period, second period, then go into nutrition. And I'd see this girl that always, there was a chick that had Black Beauties, and somebody else had Dordan, somebody else had Placidil, and then there was Nebutol, Tuinol, and Seconal. And there somebody had Valiums, and there was Librium. And I was like, by the time I got into my 4th period ceramics class with Mr. Doy, I was like wasted. I was like, and then I'd overdosed a bunch, you know. And my brother John said, you know, after I overdosed the 3rd time, he said, you got to stop taking drugs, man. You got to learn how to drink. And I go, okay. So I started drinking with my brother John, and then it just, you know, I loved, you know, essentially once I started drinking, I just felt that liquid courage, and I think, you know, what alcohol did for me was just amazing. But then what it did to me, like Clancy used to say, you know, if it didn't do what it did for me, you could never do what it did to me. And I'm a Jekyll and Hyde kind of a personality. When I drink, I can't predict what's going to happen. I don't know. It's an adventure. I could start off here in Manhattan Beach at this podium and end up somewhere. I don't know where I'm going to end up. It's never as planned, you know. It's wherever the party is, and most of the times it's not a party you want to be involved with. And you know, I remember like having blackouts, a lot of blackouts, and I'd black out the night that the Hillside Strangler would kill somebody, and I started thinking maybe I was the Hillside Strangler, and you know, and I getting into car accidents, and anyway, that got me into sobriety. But I want to let you know that when I got here, like I was so uncomfortable. I don't know about you new guys, but I'd sit in these meetings and I would think, you know, I can't wait till this meeting's over. You know, I can't wait for the meeting to be over. And then as soon as the meeting would be over, I couldn't wait for the next meeting to start. But I couldn't get comfortable where I was at, no matter what was going on. So I ended up getting sober over at the Pacific Group, and I got Clancy as a sponsor. And I'm 19. I went to Santa Monica College when I got sober, and I started getting involved in production stuff. And I wanted to be a roadie and a sound engineer, and I remember getting a job offer at a club working sound, which is something I really wanted to do. I was 20 years old, and I wanted to be a sound engineer. And I'd always been, like, in high school, I was doing some music stuff. And I called Clancy to tell him I got this job offer, but I wasn't going to take the job because if I took the job, I wouldn't be able to go to my meetings. All the meetings were at night. And he said, "What are you talking about, man?" He said, "I thought you wanted to be a sound engineer." And I go, "I do." And he goes, "Matt, the steps are set up for you to live your life. It's for you to walk through your fears, for you to live your life. Not my life or anybody else's life. It's your life." He said, "Take that job." He goes, "And, come to the Wednesday night meeting if you can, but you'll find other meetings to go to." So I did, and so much of what I've learned in AA is to unlearn what I think I know, And I remember there was a guy used to always talk about. He says, "If you think you know, you don't know. But if you know, you don't know, then you know." And so I just didn't know any time. Like, I couldn't tell you the right way to go in my life for a long time. I didn't know, like, God's way. I didn't know how to walk hand in hand with my Creator. And I was fearful in the choices I made. Because I just, one thing about getting sober is that the one thing that I realized when I got here is that in every failed relationship I'd ever had, every arrest that ever happened, every car crash that ever happened, every overdose, every breakup I've ever had, everything that's ever gone wrong in my life, the common denominator was me. I was the problem. And that's when I got here, I knew I was the problem. And I remember my very first AA meeting. Let me talk about my first meeting. And my mom asked my brother John to take me to a meeting when I was 16. So I used to have really long hair. I'm trying to grow it again, but it's not working out, Gonna have to cut it. It's getting kind of thin, and but it's kind of fun, So, but I had really long hair. I had hair down to my ass, and it was really hot. It was like 90 degrees, and actually, John called me. He said, "Hey, Mom wants me to take you to an AA meeting," and he goes, "So I just got this check for $2,000," and he goes, "I'm gonna cash it, and we'll drink," and he goes, "And when we run out of money, we're gonna go to an AA meeting." And I go, "Okay, John, let's just cash that check." So he cashes the check, and 2 weeks later, we ran out of money, and so he called me. It was a Sunday, and he goes, "Okay, we're going to go to an AA meeting tonight." And I go, "Okay, come get me." And so he picked me up, and so I had just a pair of jeans on, no shirt, no shoes, just long hair. My brother John was wearing 6-inch platform shoes, and he had patch pants on. He had a big feather roach clip for an earring. He had a big white streak in his hair. He looked like the guitar player from Deep Purple, and he had chipped teeth, so he kind of looked like a vampire too. And his girlfriend Kath was wearing overalls, and she wasn't wearing a top, and she was really well endowed, and we were smoking. We all smoked a lot of cigarettes. I smoked 2.5 packs of cigarettes at that time, and John, we all did. Everybody smoked. And we walked into the parking lot of this meeting, Ohio Street meeting, and there's all these people are smoking, and there's like, it looked like a bunch of rednecks, and older people, like 30, people, 30 and over, and this guy Dave Z walked up to me and John, and he goes, do you guys know where you are? And I looked at John and I go, "You wanted to go? You do the talking." So John goes, "AA?" And Dave goes, "Yeah, that's right." He goes, "You guys know what AA is?" And John goes, "No." And he goes, "What we do here is we don't do any non-habit forming cocaine, because cocaine in the 70s was a non-habit forming drug. We don't do any recreational heroin. We don't take any downers. We don't take any speed. We don't take any acid. We don't smoke any dope. And we don't drink." And John looks at me and he goes, "For how long?" and Dave goes, "Just for today. When was the last time you guys went to bed instead of pass out?" And then he said, "When was the last time you guys woke up instead of come to?" And nobody had ever said to me, "Come to." Like, none of my friends have ever said, "Did you come to today?" And nobody knew that I knew I came to, but nobody knew I came to. And then we walked into the meeting, and he got us seats. The place was packed, and he made sure we had cigarettes and matches. He got us coffee. I didn't drink coffee at the time, but he got me a cup of coffee. and he sat us down, and he circled all the meetings he went to. They were all at 8:30 at night, Monday through Sunday, every day. He gave us his phone number, and he said, listen, if you guys are serious about staying sober, everybody in this room will go to hell and back to help you guys stay sober for tonight. He said, but if you want to drink, there's probably somebody in here that'll give you money to go buy a bottle. And I just thought that kind of was like one of those voodoo things they put on you, And then he said, but if you're serious about staying sober, the most important information you can find at this meeting is where's your next meeting going to be, and can you stay sober between now and your next meeting? That's all that matters. And if you're new, that's all that matters. Where's your next meeting going to be? Can you stay sober between now and your next meeting? That's all that matters. And everybody in this room will go to hell and back to help you stay sober. And then this guy, Bill, got up to the podium that night, and he said two things that I'll never forget. One thing where I thought, you'll never hear this in an Al-Anon meeting, but this is where I thought alcoholics were really smart. It was like, because Al-Anons never say we're smart, but Bill said, he goes, if you don't take the first drink, you can't get drunk. And I was like, how did you figure that out? Like, right? That's like... and back then my language was like, whoa, far out, man, like, whoa. And dude, did you hear that? It's the first drink. Wow. Still to this day, I think it's like the sixth drink, you know what I mean? But it is the first one. I was kind of like Spicoli back in those days, too. So, and then he said, there may come a time in your sobriety where you want to drink, but you don't have to for the rest of your life, one day at a time. And that's like that stayed with me. There's been a couple times in my sobriety where I felt like maybe it's an idea I had, but I just didn't have to. And I don't have to. Like, you don't have to drink anymore. That's the other thing is, like, now that you're sober in AA, if you go drink from here on out, you're taking the drink. It's not your mom's fault. It's not your dad's fault. It's not your relationship's fault. You're taking that drink. You're taking a sober breath, and you're making a decision to drink. It's nobody else's fault anymore. One thing they told me, too, about AA is if you go to an AA meeting, it really ruins your drinking career. So I thought, because all the stuff that I heard, I thought this stuff's never going to happen in my life. Over the next 3 years, all that stuff happened in my life. And so I got sober, and at that, a couple of years later after that. And, I started slow in AA, and I worked the steps. I want to let you know that I've worked the steps all the time now. But the first time I worked a 4-step, I did it because my sponsor asked me to. And the first time I did a 4-step, after doing the 4-step, I felt like I belonged in AA. I felt like I belonged. But the first time I did my 4-step, I did it for me. No, I did it because my sponsor asked me to. And then the second time I did a 4-step, I did it because I wanted to. And then the third time I did a 4-step is because I needed relief. Because I was going crazy. And I ended up getting a job. So when I got that job as a sound engineer, I had just heard Chuck Chamberlain speak, and Chuck said, we do things for fun and for free around here. So there was a band that was playing that night, and I told the band, I got to work for you guys. Like, they were so good. It was the bass player from the Vanilla Fudge. It was the drummer from Sly and the Family Stone and the guitar player from Steppenwolf. And they were so good, this band. And so after the show, I said, I got to work for you guys. I'll even work for you guys for free. And they took me up on my offer. And and I did. I worked for those guys for free. And it's been 44 years, and they're still good friends of mine. And they actually opened the doors for me to get jobs for other bands. And it is, we do things for fun and for free around here. We do, if we don't attach a paycheck to everything we do and just have fun doing what we do, Alcoholics Anonymous has given me such a great life. And, I started going on tour quite a bit, and then I ended up having a son, and his mother and I weren't getting along. We had to go to court, and when I was down in court, I had a new sponsor. His name was Bob Horrigan, and Bob, when we were downtown at the courthouse, and Bob looked at me. I was 10 years sober, and he goes, "What's the matter, Matt?" I said, "Bob, I don't think this is going to go well." I said, I still felt like it was me against the man. I don't like judges. I don't like courthouses. This is not going to go well. He said, Matt, life is like the Academy Awards. He goes, the judge has already read your case, and she's already stuffed the answer in the envelope. So all you got to do is walk in and calmly state your case and leave the results to the guy upstairs. And he says, if you're worried about the guy upstairs having dropping the other shoe, he says, what if the guy upstairs only has 1 foot? And he got me to laugh. And I go, okay, let's go inside. He goes, well, before we go inside, Matt, he says, I want you to walk up to the door, open the door to the courthouse, take in a deep breath, and let God walk in first. And I go, okay. And he repeated that again, because I guess he thought it was important. And so I did do that. And I calmly stated the case to the judge. And a year later, I ended up getting custody of my son. And then we moved to Redondo Beach. And I lived in Redondo Beach until 1993, 94. And we lived in Redondo Beach from 1993 to 1996, and I was out on tour with a comedian, and when I came home, I found out I had cancer, and I got married after that. My wife left me while I was on tour, and then it turned out I ended up getting cancer. I had throat cancer, and and my son's mom took me back to court to get custody of my son. I ended up totaling my car. I lost my house. It was a really bad year, and then, I ended up some friends of mine in AA actually helped me out with this whole thing, and it just was an incredible experience, and I got through that. And after I got through that, the guy that I was working for asked me if I wanted to work with him on a movie, and I don't know how to do that stuff, but he called me up and he goes, come down and tell these guys what you want to do. And so I got this job working with them, and the first day of this job, I pick him up, I drive him, and I ran into a guy that on my first day, back when I was in high school. I got to wrap up in 4 minutes, huh? How much time do I got left? 15. Oh, I got 15. Okay, so let me just say this. So when I was 15 or 16 years old, I forgot to say this, but when I was 15 or 16 years old, that guy that beat my head on the ground, we were at his house, and he lived in Westwood, and these two girls, really pretty, they lived in Bel Air, and they called us and told us if we brought them a bottle of Southern Comfort, they would have sex with us. And we had been hearing about this sex thing for a while, and we'd been talking about it, and so we were overly excited to try to get up there, so we got $20 or whatever. We went across the street to Bel Air Liquor, had some guy to buy us a bottle of Southern Comfort. We took a taxi to Bel Air, and then I ended up getting. It was great. It was a good night, and and the next day, I found out the girl I was with had a boyfriend, and his name was Frank. And Frank was a couple years older than me, and Frank was going to kick my ass, and so. That was so from the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, I'd be at a party and somebody would go, Kimball, Frank's here. I go, I got to go. And I just thought, I was out. And right after high school, I heard Frank died of cancer. I was like, oh, thank God, So cut to, that I graduated high school in 1977. So cut to 20 years later, 1997, the first day of filming, I'm with this actor. And we drive up, and I walk with him, and there's two stars. There's my guy and this girl, and the girl walks by with her security guard, and he looks familiar, and he turns around and looks at me, and he goes, Kimball? I go, Frank? and I go, I heard you died of cancer. He goes, I heard you died of cancer. And then I said, I swear to God, I didn't know she was your girlfriend. I mean, like 20 years later, that's all I could think of. And he was a black belt in karate, and we became, so before I got sober, they say our problems are mostly of our own making. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. I'm a coward. I'm not going to I didn't face the stuff that I did when I was younger. I would just cut and run. I'd burn bridges, and I just kept burning bridges, And Frank is not sober, but Frank, we're really, we talk like once a year. We'll talk for an hour. This guy is the greatest. He says he wouldn't have kicked my ass. I know he would have. Anyway, but, so much of my life before I got sober, I just would cut and run. I never faced anything that I did wrong. I didn't know how to do that. You guys taught me how to show up and do the right thing. And so then they put me in the movie. One day they go, "Hey, Matt, you want to be in the movie?" And I go, "Yeah, sure." And so they thought it'd be really funny if there was a bar scene, and it was a real bar. It was an actual bar, and there was just me and the star, this extra, and the bartender who was the writer, and the director and the camera operator. That was the only people in this scene. And it was a real bar. And the set decorator, this guy was sober, this guy named Bucky. And Bucky goes, "Matt," he goes, this is in this shot glass, I'm putting apple juice, because people were drinking really in the bar scene. But he goes, "I wanted to show me that he put right in my, so I knew what it was." And they said, they go, "We want you to smoke a cigarette and drink." Now they know I'm sober, and they know I just had cancer from smoking, and they think it's funny. So anyway, so I did the scene, and I got a credit. My credit in the movie is "Drunk at the Bar," Matthew Kimball. So my big stardom. What do I want to say? So when I was like 18 years sober, I got another sponsor, and Howard Pullins, and I told Howard that I had, I've had some strokes. I just had a stroke 6 months ago, and I've had some brain injuries, and my brain's scarred, and from the head injuries I had when I was younger, and I had a lot of head injuries, and I was telling Howard when I was like 18 years sober, I go, the promises aren't going to come true in my life, because I still don't know how to not react. Like, I can't pause. I go from 0 to 150. I could not. And if there's anybody in this room that knows that feeling, that remorse that you feel the next day when you're not supposed to yell, but you can't help yourself from yelling, it's just an awful feeling. And I told Howard, after trying so many times to do everything I could, nothing's going to work. And I go, I think it's the brain. I think it's the concussions from all, everything. Football players get it. And I go, and he goes, "Okay, well, let's do the steps anyway." And so I go, "Yeah, but Howard," and he goes, "Well, let's just do them." And so I did the steps with Howard. And what I found was, through doing these steps, when I was convinced that my problems were bigger than AA could fix, was that I had that surrender that was necessary to find the help that I was looking for, that I didn't know I was looking for until I did the steps. And I had the surrender that was necessary for me to find a different power in my life, a different higher power than I'd had before. And I realized that was my problem. My problem wasn't with there's no problem in my brain. Whatever's in my brain's in my brain, but that's my problem is that if I get connected to that source that people talk about around here, that source brings me to a place where I don't have to think about that stuff. And it's not my place to try to fix things that I can't fix. And the best I could do is try to be sober and help another alcoholic. That's the best I could do. And so that was the greatest gift one of the greatest gifts I had in sobriety was with Howard when we did that 4-step again. He had me do the first 3 steps for 3 years. I'm 18, 20 years sober, and for 3 years I did the first 3 steps every single day until we went on to the 4-step. And then we went on to the 4-step and went through all the steps. And I'm forever grateful to Howard. Howard used to say, he passed away a few years ago, and Howard used to say, wherever you find God, mark that spot, sit in that window often. It's important for you to go wherever that is. Wherever you're happy, wherever you find your happiness, go there often. Find that spot, be there as much as you can. Sometimes we forget to do that. We get busy. And so, I was flying home from Japan just before COVID, And we'd hit really bad turbulence. And I've been in really bad turbulence before. I was in turbulence where I had to put one hand under the seat and one hand on the bulkhead because we were like to stay in the chair. I mean, it was so bad. So these turbulence were similar to that, but I don't know, for some reason, I knew we were going to crash and I knew we were going to die. Just like I knew the AA couldn't fix me, you know. When I get in that position where I know, when I know what I know, I don't know, right? So I thought, you know, I was terrified. I was friggin' terrified. And I thought, we're going to die. Like, and I thought, I wonder, how can I get rid of this feeling? Like, I mean, I was like it was a panic attack. I was, you know, it was awful. And I thought, I wonder if you drink, does that fix that? I never drank to fix that. So I thought about it and I thought, well, two reasons. It can't do that because if I don't die, I got to start over. And I was just thinking, you know, but that was the first thought I had. And then the second thought was, I've got this AA Big Book app, and in here, the 12 steps thing, there's like 14 prayers. And I start reading these prayers as if my life depended upon it. And I read them through, and I was still terrified. I read them through again, I was still terrified. The third time of reading them through, I felt a sense of ease and comfort that came over me. And, you know, if you're new, you're going to hit turbulence. And there's tools we get to use. And I had to read those prayers 3 times for me to get the benefit of them. I had to do the steps 3 times in order to find the surrender I was looking for, or I didn't even know I was looking for. So whatever it is you think you're going through, I hope you don't give up on working on the stuff that you need to work on. Don't give up. And there's a better life for us here. And there's something about being in an AA meeting. I come to Alcoholics Anonymous because I like the effect produced by coming to meetings. But also, when I'm here, I want to be a better person. You know, I'm a thief and I'm no good. But I come here and I see you guys do things, and you make me want to be a better version of me. And I hear this, you guys are all my gurus, good, bad, or indifferent. I need everything I need to hear, I hear from you guys. And I need you so much. And if you're new, I want to let you know that the first 45 years are really hard. Thanks for speaking.
Thank you, Matt. All right. Okay, this is a